This is Start, Grow, Manage, where we help managed service providers achieve the impact, freedom, and wealth you imagined back when you started your company. At Start, Grow, Manage, our tools, practices, and processes help you engage, energize, and execute on building a business that empowers an extraordinary life. Learn more about our programs and how they can fuel your fire at startgrowmanage.com/learn more. Let's go.
Did I tell you what happened to our solar panels?
No.
Squirrels ate them. The squirrels ate all the cables. So I kept getting these errors, and they're like, oh, you have to reset this and reset that, and like all this stuff that you have to do. And they kept telling me, oh, you have to plug this in and restart this and restart the other thing. And then they said it's not working. So they came out to look at it, and they're all, oh yeah, all of your cables were eaten by squirrels. And then they said, now we have to replace your panels. And they said, oh, but we don't make those panels anymore, so we have to replace the whole system. And then they said, and then you need a new inverter because the old inverter isn't quite the right inverter. So now they're replacing the entire system.
Holy moly. All because of your squirrels.
The nice thing is it's a lease, so I don't have to worry about it. It's a prepaid lease. Tim, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking about solar panels and the fact that I am in a construction zone here. I'm feeling more respect for sort of war zone correspondents at the moment and their ability to have a conversation quietly in the middle of everything going on. I'm also getting insulation done in my attic because we didn't have very much and it really sucks. So we're finally putting insulation in there.
Man, I'm just glad you don't have to pay to replace the entire system.
Oh, I would be livid. Yes, I wouldn't be as relaxed as I am right now. But it's actually cool. The way it's structured is it's a lease, a 20-year prepaid lease. Well, I prepaid it because it was the cheapest way to do it, right? Like you could pay over time, but I said, I'm just going to pay. And then they guarantee a certain amount of output. And so once it stopped, they were on the hook and they had to come replace the panels and replace the inverter. I lost 6 months of production, but at least I don't have to pay for the replacement.
God, that's crazy. Absolutely
it's amazing how much these panels save me. I can't believe how much electricity costs. It's really expensive.
I got a buddy actually I have two friends still in California, one in Sacramento, one in the Bay Area. And the one in Sacramento, he actually sells them. So he's, man, I should have put these in a long time ago. His electric bill was getting up to $800 a month. The return is like 8 to 10 years. He's, man, I'm going to get my return because he was getting them at wholesale. He's, man, I'm going to get a return in 2-3 years.
Oh, mine paid themselves off. It took me about 2.5 years. I did the math. No, it might have been 4 years. 4 years to pay themselves off.
Yeah.
I had them for 10. Everything after, and the lease is 20. So it's everything after that is gravy. And if you fly over California, like the idea that all of those rooftops are not covered with solar panels blows my mind because they're all just sitting there collecting heat, right? Could be collecting electricity that runs the air conditioners. Like, I can't stand it. It drives me nuts.
The thing is, most people don't have the money to do it.
But there's so many incentives, except SMUD in Sacramento actually doesn't want you to, because they're doing so much solar centrally that they're doing something different in Sacramento. But we got all these rebates. It only cost us like $6,000 at the end of the day for the whole system.
See, that's not bad.
It's not that much.
No.
Especially if you consider how much money you're spending on electricity, right? Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, Tim. So I wanted to have a chat with Tim because I felt like we were kindred spirits. He's in marketing. I do marketing. We tolerate Joe. But when we started talking about it, we started talking about the need to focus and the need to niche. And I thought we just had a good conversation. So then what got you into marketing? So Rialto marketing is yours, right?
Yes.
What got you to marketing and got you into Rialto? What happened there?
I'll tell you the short story. When I graduated from college, I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. I was a math major. My dad had been a manufacturer's rep for a long time. So he was a middleman between the dealers and the manufacturer. And he had started a distribution company about a year or two before I graduated. And he needed help. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, let me help you for the summer. And after the summer, I was like, man, I'm hooked. I don't want to do anything else. So please tell me that you want me to continue doing this. And he did. I worked with my dad for over 10 years. I ran the distribution company. He ran his rep company. We grew 60% a year for 9 years. We sold it. Then I got out of it. So this was like 2008, 2009 timeframe. We got bought by a public company, and I actually got laid off. They were freaking out about what was happening in the economy at that time. And so I was like, man, what the hell am I going to do? This is the only thing I know professionally. I need to shift gears. So at that time, I had always been interested in real estate. So I got into residential real estate, which I could not stand. I did it for about 3 years. I put myself outside of my comfort zone every damn day. I was actually door knocking people that were in foreclosure, and I was doing short sale business. So I was working with the lender.
Oh, lovely. That sounds like fun.
You know, it's crazy. The first time I knocked on a door, I was absolutely terrified. Had no idea what to expect, but the more I did it, the more comfortable I got. And I just got to a place where stuff just didn't surprise me. I had some interesting encounters with people, but that experience really helped me get out of my comfort zone. And if we're going to be successful, we have to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones. So I'm thankful for that time, even though I did not enjoy all of it. But I got to a point where I was waking up every day going, oh my God, I got to do this. And to me, when you own a business and you're waking up like that, there's no point. You got to shift gears. So I thought about, gosh, what did I love about distribution? Where are some of my skill sets? And that's when I got into marketing, which I'll tell you, my road in marketing has been a winding road as well. Marketing is so broad at this point. It is, the fundamentals of marketing haven't changed. And I know we're going to talk about that. But man, the tactics, the channels are just evolving so quickly. And most people are just overwhelmed. And so it took me a while to figure out where I really fit in the space. I've gotten to a point where I'm good at strategy, I'm good at planning, and I'm good at running people's marketing efforts. And so that's what I've chosen to focus on. And I let everything else go. And I work with other people that do the other parts of marketing.
The fundamentals of marketing haven't changed. And I think that's really true. But I think what happens with a lot of people when they're confronted with the idea of marketing is that they just get buried in tactics and channels and producing noise. And there's like this belief that if I just produce a lot of noise, then I'm going to succeed or people are going to want to buy my thing. And I find it just doesn't work that way. The producing noise for the sake of noise just doesn't seem to drive sales. It just seems to be expensive.
Because noise is just noise.
But do you see that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much noise out there now. Like you said, Jeff, there's so many different channels, so many different tactics within those channels. There's just all kinds of noise. And it always comes back to information overload. People are like, oh my God, I need to have a YouTube channel. I need to be on Facebook. I need to have a blog. I got to do all these things. When in reality, most of us really don't need to do that much to have a very successful marketing effort. We just need to hone in on the best things for us, focus on less to accomplish more. And the other thing that it's so easy to just jump to the tactics in marketing because there's so much noise and people feel like, gosh, if I'm going to spend time on strategy and laying that foundation, that's time that I'm not taking action. And so I'm actually losing time. But what most people miss and how I think of strategy is fuel. The marketing channels and the tactics, those are the vehicles. So if we just jump into the vehicle and we have no fuel, it's not going to work. Some people have success for a period of time, but it's like you're pushing the car down the road. But what happens when you hit the hill? You're like, oh crap, I don't have fuel. I can't get up this hill.
One of the things that we talk about is that you can get lucky.
You can. Yes, you can.
You can get lucky. Something can happen. Like you can post something and have 1 billion people want it the next day. It happened to somebody, but that's just a terrible strategy.
Yes, it is.
So if your strategy is I'm going to get lucky, right? It's just not a good strategy because then you are doing stuff with the hope that you get something and you get lucky. And it's just not a good strategy.
Yeah. Do you want to take the chances that you're going to be that 1 in a million person? Or do you want to improve your odds?
I think most people want to take the chances that they're the 1 in a million.
Listen, that's why the lottery works, bro.
Yeah. The reason why it involves less thought, and it's what you said earlier, you're in action. So you feel like you're doing stuff. People confuse busyness with business all the time. And they're going to say, oh, I want the strategy. But really, I think when it comes to strategy, it scares people.
It does. I think there's a lot of fear around it. But gosh, When we talk about target market, we talk a lot about, hey, you need to focus.
Yeah.
And we've all heard the saying, fear of loss is a greater motivator than gain. Most people's biggest roadblock when you tell them that they need to focus is, gosh, what about all the other people?
What
Like,
about
I'm going
everything
to miss out. And the reality is the people that focus find out that when they do focus, life becomes so much easier.
And
But
you know
there's
what's
that fear.
interesting, that and you become attractive, right? And
Yes.
not in the sense that you're going to look pretty, because clearly, but in the sense that people want to work with you if you're focused, right? People want, because they see what you do and, oh, that's about me. And I know I've looked at your program on your website, and that's where you start, right? Is with
Yes.
finding the target market.
And come up with this. When you look at marketing or sales or any discipline, to me, the fundamentals don't change. They're the same today as they were 50 years ago, and they're going to be the same 50 years from now. With marketing, I think it all starts with your target market. If you do not understand who your target market is and who your ideal clients are within that market, everything else down the line is going to be out of alignment. And you might get lucky, as you said, Jeff, but most of the time you're not going to get lucky, and it's going to feel like you're banging your head against a wall.
It's going to be an uphill slog. I was an MSP for 20 years. And the first 3 years of that, it was like, it was like, it's just the hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to break through rock with a 2x4. And it's so hard, and you're banging away at it and banging away at it and talking to everybody. But the second you get narrow, the second you say, oh, I only work with personal injury lawyers, what I discovered, you really understand the problems that you're solving for that particular person. And I never get tired of talking about this with MSPs, because MSPs especially, they just want to help everybody and be agnostic and be out there and be out, not missing anything. But then what?
I'm going to step in here and say, actually, I'm sick and tired of talking about it with MSPs. So you work with MSP, Tim?
Yes.
That's your target customer, right?
Yes.
We work with MSPs, and I gotta ask, guys, so just between us, like nobody else is paying attention, just between us, why don't they get it? Why is it so hard? Right? It's like you say, it's been marketing 101 for the last 100 years that marketing has existed. Define your target niche and go after them. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That's been as true when it was about newspapers as it is when you're talking about Instagram, right? That's not changed at all. And yet, every single person fights it. Do you find that too, Tim?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The vast majority do. And I think, Jeff, it comes back to what we touched on earlier. It's just fear. I'm fearful that if I make this choice, it's not going to help me. And here's the reality of it. Just because you make a choice to focus on a very specific niche doesn't mean that you're pouring concrete and your feet are stuck in the concrete. I'm making a choice for now. Like Joe's saying, hey, look, I started working with personal injury attorneys and I didn't like it. Okay, great. Then change again. It's okay. You can make that shift.
It's so easy. You sell the company. That's what I did. And then you just start over again.
There you go. That's one way to do it, right, Joe? So it's like, we're not saying you need to do this forever. All we're saying is you got to make a choice right now, because, and especially with MSPs, because look, a lot of MSPs are smaller, owner operated. They don't have a ton of people, don't have a huge budget. Man, you can't target broadly without hundreds of millions upon maybe even billions of dollars. Right. And even large Fortune 500 companies, they don't target broadly. Their campaigns are very narrowly targeted. We just don't see that as the consumer. So you got to make a choice. A lot of MSPs are selling geographically, right? That, I think that's starting to shift now because of the pandemic. MSPs are starting to realize, gee, I really don't need to go in and serve most of my clients. And especially as things shift to the cloud, it's, man, I can do business anywhere. And so to me, focusing geographically is one way to niche, right? I think it's easier to niche on a specific vertical.
100%, because there's two things. You niche geographically. I've done that too. right? I've run several MSPs and I've helped run MSPs. When you niche geographically is great because you can get a technician anywhere within 20 minutes if you tighten up that geography really tight, right? The problem is onboarding. See, let's talk about delivery for a minute. See, people talk about niching from a marketing perspective. Forget that. You got to niche because it's impossible to deliver if I'm doing retail stores over here and HIPAA compliance over here. This is two different animals. For the retail store, I need cameras, I need some registered, whatever, but there's PCI, but it's not like a big deal. For HIPAA compliance, or if I'm doing FINRA compliance, or if I'm doing some really hardcore, I need some serious gray matter to go at that.
And by the way, Joe, Tim and I will explain to you that the marketing actually includes delivery. But you said an important thing, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, Tim, is the onboarding. The onboarding, because one of the things that we find over and over again is if your onboarding is amazing, people will forgive errors later on. And if your onboarding is terrible, then every little thing later becomes a major disaster. And if you're doing something for the first time, onboarding is really hard. But if you've done it a million times, onboarding is really easy to get. It's just a process. So again, that really supports this idea of know whom you're serving to. And I think when you're looking geographically, the only thing that you can say is, hey, I'm close by, but that's not actually solving the real fundamental problem that your clients have. And it might be easier to onboard in terms of you can go to their office, though with services like Field Nation, not really. It's still just as easy, even if you're not there. But you could make the argument that onboarding in person is easier that way. But I don't think you're really solving a problem, or you're really onboarding them in terms of delivering a service if you don't have some understanding of their business and their vertical.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to play off of here, because Joe, I think you're 100% right. You're reinventing the wheel every time. I interviewed a guy, Chris Knowles, on my podcast from Beyond Computer Solutions, and he focuses on real estate attorneys and title companies. And one of the things that he talked about in the interview was that their help tickets are minimal. And why are their help tickets minimal? Their help tickets are minimal because they can serve the people they serve at the highest level. They know exactly what needs to happen so that their systems run as efficiently as possible. He handles help tickets in-house. He doesn't have to worry about outsourcing it somewhere else or having a ton of people on staff. There are so many benefits in going narrow and serving a very specific vertical.
So that's because you understand your niche, you can deliver it well. You don't have help tickets, which means you have lower cost. It also means that you can charge more. So you have lower cost of delivery, but you can charge more because you are more valuable, because your customer actually doesn't like calling the help desk, and they'd be very happy to just have stuff work all the time.
Yeah, and you're more profitable too.
100%, because your cost is lower and your price is higher.
The other huge benefit in niching is your message, right? That's the second revenue roadblock we help clients remove. You got target market, then you have your message. Even if you're focused in a geographic area, it's still going to be more challenging and difficult to craft a message that's really going to resonate. But if you're speaking to just MSPs or just attorneys, they got their own lingo, right? And when you can talk their lingo and the message you're putting out there is in their words, and they're like, geez, man, Joe gets me. That is how you are going to convert customers and attract them. And it's hard to do that if you don't focus on a narrow niche.
Yeah. We ran a company called Computer ER. And so all of our techs wore scrubs. We worked only with doctors, and we had charts.
Hey, there you go.
You triage your problem, like everything. And the guys used to wear, do you remember the old rounding straps?
Yeah.
Instead of a stethoscope, they wore a rounding strap. It was so much fun. We walked in, everybody had their clipboard. We had all our stuff. If you could, how long ago this was, we had clipboards and work orders. You had a little doctor's bag with your tools in it. It was the whole thing. But the reason we did it that way is because we really wanted to speak directly to doctors. And then we niched down even further and went down to ophthalmologists.
Doctors talk about patients, attorneys talk about clients. And so The more narrow you can get and specific with the language you use that they use, that all helps your marketing message. And you can't do that when you target broadly.
I have another thought. I'd be interested in your thought on this as well, Tim. I think another reason why companies struggle to define a niche is not just a fear of marketing, but a fear of delivery. And I think that what happens when you niche is you actually are putting yourself more on the line, because you're saying, I understand what you do, so I can deliver a higher level of service around exactly what you need. So now it's not generic anymore. Now you actually have to know something. So when Joe goes into an ophthalmologist, he actually has to know something about
A LASIK machine.
I don't know how a LASIK machine works. You get this wrong and people are going to be pissed off. Like their eyes are going to be backwards and it's just not going to be good at all. So there's a delivery challenge with niching as well, that we get scared as entrepreneurs to define a niche because it means that our ass is more on the line.
100%.
Do you ever see that?
So here's a hypothetical question. Is if you're having to reinvent the wheel every time because you're working with different types of clients, is that really any different than initially starting to work with ophthalmologists? Sure, the first few times you do it, you might be scared and there's a ton of things you have to figure out. But once you figure out those things, all of a sudden the pieces of the puzzle are coming together and then you're done.
I think we can hide in ambiguity. Like we can hide it. I do this generic thing. But when you're talking to an ophthalmologist and you say, I do ophthalmology, you're going to have to know LASIK. Like clearly I could not go into an ophthalmologist's office because I have perfect eyesight. I've never even been to one. What do I know about ophthalmology? But it's true what you say. You do that 2 or 3 times, you really get to understand their problems, and then it's cakewalk. But it does mean that you're going to have to learn their business.
See, this is the thing. If the computer is a computer, then you're a commodity.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I understand how ophthalmologists deliver services and that the most important thing for them is how many patients they can see in a day, then I'm going to figure out, how do I get you to stop taking notes by hand? Now let's get you a Bluetooth. Let's get you to transcribe the notes verbally. Let's get you an EMR that is all pull down menus. So you don't have to type, because you have a lot of notes that you have to take for the eyes and a lot of measurements. And every single time you have to type it, let's find something that's very niche, very specific just for you. When you're not niche, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's the client's problem and their vendor. The problem is that you're a commodity. So it's all about price now. If you want to make money, you got to stop being a commodity.
So I want to piggyback off this, Joe, because I think that's an awesome example. So their goal is to maximize the number of patients they can see in a day. If I'm targeting broadly, I've got a message, we make IT simple, or let us run your IT so that you don't have to do this. If I'm an ophthalmologist and I go to that website and then I go to yours and it says IT that helps you maximize the number of patients you see every day, who the hell am I going to call first? It is no question. And like you said, when you're seen as different, you can maximize how much you charge.
And you can actually have more fun with it, because now you can also talk about your LASIK machine is going to be working so much, it's going to break down because you've already used it up like in a month, and you're going to be so happy to buy another LASIK machine because you have so many patients like the whole time. Like you get to tell more interesting stories at that point.
You absolutely do. Here's another thing to think about. When you know I'm calling on ophthalmologist, it becomes much easier to start to create that list. Like one of my mentors said, success starts with a list. You got to have a list of where your ideal clients are. When you know that you're going to target ophthalmologists, it is so much easier to create a list of how to get in front of them than it is if I'm targeting small businesses. It's too broad, right? It's like trying to find a needle in the middle of a football field rather than knowing, hey, I need to be right on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's so much harder to get a list of small businesses than it is a list of ophthalmologists.
It's so much easier.
Oh, there's so many small businesses, but how do you know which one to target?
But you just go to Google, you type ophthalmologist in your zip code and you hit enter, and boom, there they all are.
It's that, but it's also what trade shows do they go to? What events do they go to? What ophthalmologists get publications from associations? They follow specific influencers in the space. You can create a super targeted list so that if you go to any of those places, you're fishing where the fish are. So much easier.
You just brought up something for me. Maybe this isn't new for you, but it's new for me. I'm learning here. But it's the idea that if you can't easily create a list. If you can't answer that question around what conferences does my target market go to, or where do they congregate, or what do they do? If you can't answer those questions, and you can't for a small business, like if you say small business under $50 million, where do they congregate? I don't know, everywhere. You can't, you clearly don't have a niche. Whereas if you could say, oh, just they go to ophthalmology conferences and they download these magazines and they work in this place and they do this, that's actually a really good test for, do you have a niche that's valuable?
Absolutely. Now, the flip side to that too, Jeff, is sometimes people go, am I going too narrow? Going too narrow, if you're having a hard time creating a list because you've gone too narrow, right? It can happen that way as well. I usually tell people, look, if there's a conference around a particular vertical or niche, it's probably big enough. And here's the reality. Most MSPs don't need thousands of clients. The fear of going too narrow, it's, dude, you don't need 500 clients.
Dude, there's not too narrow. I haven't come across a niche yet that was too narrow. Like
I haven't either.
And this has nothing to do with MSPs, but I was listening to this woman who runs a blog on succulents, indoor succulents. And somebody was saying, wow, that's a really narrow niche. Do you have enough to write about with indoor succulents? And she said, I started this thing, I didn't know anything about it, but now that niche is so broad. There's so much. Now I really want to just focus on like green succulents with pointy leaves. I don't know what it was. She's like, succulents is way too broad. What we don't realize is that people actually exist in pretty narrow niches, and that we have in this economy, there is basically a market for everything. So if it's done once, it's done 1,000 times, and you only need 50 clients. So I've come across a lot of people being afraid that their niche is too narrow. I haven't once actually seen a niche that's too narrow.
Yeah, what I'll tell you is this also. I remember when I did the first one, I did attorneys, right? I would walk into a networking event before I niche, right? And people would ask me, so what do you do? And I would say, I'm an IT company and I work with small businesses. And they would go, right? Oh no, he's gonna try and sell me something. And then afterward, after I niche down, I would go, I'm an IT company and I only work with attorneys. They would go, hold on, let me introduce you. Let me take you to the attorneys that are in the room. They grab me by the wrist and walk me over to the 3 attorneys in the room and say, hey, look, Joe works with only attorneys and he's an IT guy.
Don't you need an IT guy? You were telling me yesterday that your email didn't work.
It was like a whole different animal, because when you're marketing to everybody, then everybody puts their guard up. But when you're so narrow that you're like, no, not you, that guy, they're like, oh, I know that guy. Come on, I'll introduce you.
It becomes easier for them to identify who's the best person for you to be introduced to. It's a perfect example, Joe. Oh yeah, do you know a small business owner? I'm looking for MSPs or attorneys, whatever. Oh, I know exactly who you need to talk to. So much easier for people to refer.
Tim, do you have any other thoughts, ideas on how MSPs can simplify their market? We've really dug into the niche thing. And personally, I think this is the most important step. But do you have any other thoughts or any other ideas from your
man, Jeff, we could have a whole nother episode. Here's what I would say. Target market and niching down is the most important place to start. And once you do that, you can then create a message that's going to attract and engage those people. There are a couple of things I would add to that. With your messaging, you just want to make sure that it's simple and that it's focused on who you intend to attract. Don't talk about yourself. Nobody cares, right? They only care about the problem you can solve and what the outcome looks like. That's what they care about.
See, Joe, I'm not the only one who says that. Thank you.
The other thing that I would add, once you have those things in place and you start to think about the marketing vehicles that you're going to use, don't feel like you need to be everywhere. You don't. I'd much rather, and I always recommend clients go narrower and deeper. You don't need to have 6 different marketing channels. And most of us have a really consistent business, 2 or 3. Get those dialed in. Referrals is a great. Here's the other thing. Don't reinvent the wheel. Look at what's already working in your business. Optimize that first and foremost. Most MSPs are growing on referrals. I'd be willing to bet that the vast majority of them have no system to actually get consistent referrals.
Yeah.
So optimize that system, then start to jump into and test other marketing channels.
I love that. That is a
Over that.
really good observation. I think you're really right. Cool. Before we go, I did check out your scorecard, which I thought was very cool. RevenueRoadblockScorecard.com, right?
Yes, revenueroadblockscorecard.com.
And we'll put a link in the show notes, but I thought that was very cool. Went through and you ask a few simple questions to put us on your model and identify some of those areas to work on. And I thought that was super useful and insightful and well done. Like, it really looks good. I felt professionally presented there. And it's like you say, you do something really good. It's simple, but it's informative. It helps, your target customers, your MSP really understand what's going on in their business. And that just makes it attractive. You just want to work with you, right?
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback, Jeff.
I think anybody listening should go check it out. And I think, Tim, we probably will have to do another episode or something, or maybe have you come talk at one of our summits. I just think you got the story spot on. Maybe it's just because I agree with you. I don't know.
It's about what works. It's like gravity, right? Like gravity works. You could argue against gravity.
You're like, gravity sucks, man. Okay, but it's there. And the funny thing is, like you say, Tim, we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is marketing 101. It's been marketing 101 since the beginning of time. And social media actually has not changed that. It's just given you a different channel.
And it hasn't made it better either, right? It just gave you a different channel. To jump on what you said, Tim, is really understanding where your people are. Which channel are they on? And then go on that channel. And if that's the only channel you're on, you're golden. Because that's where your people are. And that's it.
Or, and I'm going to blow your minds here, or no channel.
Nice.
What if you didn't do social media at all? That's where your referral system comes in, Tim. That's where some of these other thoughts come in. Maybe you don't even need to be on social media.
Oh, the other thing I tell people, like, look, if you don't like it, then you should not have it in your marketing plan. Like, we obviously love video. We're doing video right now, but damn, if you're terrified of video and I put video in your marketing plan, you are not going to do it well, and you're going to stop doing it. So any tactic can work. You got to find the ones that resonate with you.
I love that.
They're going to help you get in front of the people you want to work with.
I love that. And I think that's such an important message for people to hear, because I think there's this belief that I've got to do all of this stuff. Everybody's saying I have to do video, or I have to do podcasts, or I have to do writing. I hate this stuff. Find the thing that works for you. And I think when it's authentic, it'll probably work out better. I think that's brilliant advice. Awesome. It has been a real pleasure. The time flies by when we're having fun. Next time we're going to have to do it in Colorado. Maybe we'll go up one of those 10,000-foot mountains and do it from the top of there.
I'm all in, baby. I'm all in.
I love it.
Go check out Tim's marketing scorecard and choose the niche.
Thank you for having me. It's been great connecting with you guys.
There's that last thing. Remember that you are loved.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.